So 2023 is an exciting year for James Bond fans. It marks 70 years since the publication of Casino Royale, the first James Bond book by Ian Fleming. And it's also exciting because for the first time ever, the estate of Ian Fleming's family has actually regained the rights to the James Bond books, and they are publishing them themselves under an imprint called Ian Fleming Publications. This is massive. I'm really excited because to me it's almost as if the estate of Ian Fleming is self-publishing the James Bond books. And as I've had a lot of success in self-publishing myself, I know that this is a massive opportunity. The problem is, we've seen right out of the gate that Ian Fleming Publications has made a major misstep. They have announced that they are rewriting certain passages of the James Bond book. There has been a very predictable uproar, and it poses a very serious question. Will Ian Fleming Publications succeed? Digital publishing, publishing in this era is far from straightforward, and I am genuinely concerned that Ian Fleming Publications won't stick the landing. Let's talk about it. Hi guys, it's me, and I'm here with a quick video to talk about Ian Fleming Publications. I've made videos before about how excited I was to learn that the estate of Ian Fleming, so Ian Fleming's family, had regained the rights to the James Bond books, in the UK at least. I believe it's going to be worldwide. I don't know. I have some questions about that. But I was really excited when I heard this news, because I am a massive advocate of self-publishing. I've wanted to be a writer since I was 9 years old. I collected hundreds of rejection slips over the course of the years in which I tried to be a writer and sent off manuscripts to traditional publishers. And eventually, when the Kindle was invented by Amazon and Kindle Select Publishing arrived, I was able to publish my own stories as a self-published author, and I was massively successful with it. I'm very far from like the best-selling writers of all time. However, I've sold, you've heard this before, 68,000 copies of my books. I've reached 320,000 readers on Kindle Unlimited. I've made nearly $300,000 in royalties. And perhaps most notably at all, in 2018, Jeff Bezos announced to the world that there were globally 1,000 authors who made more than $100,000 a year in book sales as a self-published author, and 2018 was also the first year that I became one of those authors. So I know a thing or two about self-publishing. When it comes to self-publishing, it might not sound like a lot because 1,000 is a lot of people, but I have been since 2018 on and off one of the top 1,000 authors on Amazon. And considering there are literally millions of authors, that's actually not something to completely sniff at. I know self-publishing. And that's why I was so excited about Ian Fleming Publications regaining the rights to the James Bond books, because I saw opportunity. I mean, what you've got here are the 12 original James Bond books and The Diamond Smugglers and Thrilling Cities. These are books that have such an important part in our culture and our history. They're amazing books. They're books that get people enthused. I mean, last year, David Zaritsky from the Bond Experience ran a Bond book club where he had guests every week, and we talked about the books, and it was exciting. And so I was really stoked about the opportunities that arose from Ian Fleming Publications regaining the rights to the books and deciding that they were going to publish themselves. But I'm now really concerned that they're not going to succeed. And this is really important. Ian Fleming Publications needs to be successful. Why do they need to be successful? Well, because if you want to keep the legacy of an author alive, you need people to read his books. And that's something I'm really worried that Ian Fleming Publications might not necessarily have a really clear strategy towards doing. And I'm not insulting Ian Fleming Publications in any way, and I could be completely wrong as well. This is all stuff that I've just gathered from what I know about self-publishing and what I've been able to see online and learn about Ian Fleming Publications. The fact is, publishing books these days is a very different business to how it was back in 1953 when Ian Fleming first published Casino Royale. I mean, back then it was published, I think Jonathan Cape was the publisher, and Ian Fleming's books have been in the traditional publishing circle ever since. And that's because it used to be traditional publishing was the only way you could get published, because publishing is, it's not an easy business. especially back then, you needed to physically print books, which was expensive. And the only way you could make your money back was if you sold enough of those books to justify the printing costs. This is why it is so difficult to get a traditional publishing contract, because you have to write a book that a publisher is confident will sell enough copies to justify the amount of money they've invested in printing it and advertising it and marketing it and shipping it to bookstores and stuff like that. Of course, the arrival of ebooks and the arrival of digital publishing changed all that. Ebooks themselves changed the game completely. I mean, I sell the majority of my books as ebooks, and ebooks have the benefit of not costing anything to produce. I mean, they do cost a little in terms of bandwidth or something, but for me as an author, that changes the game completely. Had I been lucky enough to get a traditional publishing contract, I would get 10% royalties for the books that sell. Whereas with Kindle Unlimited, with Kindle publishing and publishing my books on the Kindle as ebooks, I get to keep 70% of the royalties for the books that I sell. And this is huge, because this means I need to sell 7 times fewer books to make the same money that I would through a traditional publishing contract. And also it means that I have the opportunity to reach audiences worldwide without having to invest in huge upfront costs of printing and shipping and things. Print books, still a huge deal. Still a huge deal, and it is still one of the areas which traditional publishing kind of has locked up, because you've got to have relationships with publishers, you've got to have relationships with printers, you've got to have the financial gravitas to be able to print books and ship them out without necessarily getting a return back immediately. However, Amazon has also revolutionized that to a certain extent, because you now have POD, which is print on demand, and I can upload the PDF cover file and the manuscript for my books, and wherever in the world somebody orders one of my books, Amazon will print it and within a few days ship it to them. It's not massively profitable for me as an author. I get a couple of bucks for each physical book that gets sold, but it's still a way for people to get physical copies of my books. It's less profitable than printing a whole bunch of books up front and then shipping them to the different stores. So if you know you're going to sell a ton of books, it is still worth the traditional publishing route of printing a huge amount of books and then sending them out. But if you're not sure, or you don't have that money up front, this is a way to get your books physically into people's hands. So yeah, it's a different business than it was back in the old days. And traditional publishers have been failing spectacularly to adapt to this business model. If you look at the statistics, the stock prices and revenues and things like that, the top 5 traditional publishers, the big 5, are struggling. And every so often you'll see newspaper articles saying stuff like, ebook sales are declining, we're finally having a return to print publications, and that isn't true. When they report figures for publishing, it's kind of disingenuous, because generally the figures that get reported are the ones that get self-reported by traditional publishers, and Amazon doesn't get involved in any way. So when you get the official figures that they write articles about and tell ebooks are declining, print books are going up in business, basically you're talking about a small snapshot of the industry. And the fact is, Amazon is selling bucket loads of books that never get included in these figures. I mean, ebooks in particular. You see articles that are like, oh, ebook sales are declining. And it's like, no. The ebooks that traditional publishers are publishing, sales of those are declining. But if you look at Amazon and you look at the figures for their books, and it's very difficult to get hold of those figures, although the Romance Writers of America, every year they have a presentation in which they give some really solid figures. You'll see that the amount of ebooks that are getting published is increasing massively, and the amount of ebooks that are selling is increasing massively, and the amount of authors who are making full-time incomes from selling books on Amazon is increasing massively. And the thing is, this is like an invisible part of the industry. They don't talk about it in newspapers. Nobody really has these figures. Nobody really understands it, except those of us who are actually in that industry, and we know for a fact what's going on. And that's what concerns me. I think Ian Fleming Publications, very understandably, they've launched their own imprint. They've become their own publishing company. But I think they have a heritage of traditional publishing, which means I'm a little concerned that they don't get what publishing is these days. And I'm a little concerned that that means they are not going to be successful in selling Ian Fleming's books. And it's not just a massive wasted opportunity, but there we go. Ian Fleming Publications says that they are there to protect and uphold the legacy of Ian Fleming and its writing. And the only way you can do that is by selling books. And if you fail to sell books, you are failing to protect and uphold the legacy of Ian Fleming. And the first and biggest misstep that they've made, which is a huge red flag to me, is this decision to rewrite certain passages of the Ian Fleming James Bond books. That is just, I have no idea who came up with that idea, but it is a terrible, terrible idea. And anybody who actually thought about that in any way, anybody who's involved in the industry of selling books, you'd think might be able to say this. I mean, I've got a copy of, right here, one second, Live and Let Die. Here we go. This is an American edition, printed in, when does this get printed? This is printed in 1954. This is actually one of the first ones. Underneath, complete and unabridged. Even back then, in 1954, they were promoting books for being unabridged, for not being edited. So I don't understand why 69 years later, Ian Fleming Publications thinks that people want edited, rewritten books. No. And especially books that have been in print for 70 years. I mean, Ian Fleming's books are not flying off the bookshelves. If we look at some of the sales figures, it's very different. You have to kind of like guesstimate the sales figures. But if you look at, say, Casino Royale right now on Amazon.com, it is at, here we go, 92,559 in the Kindle store, which means it's making around $18 in sales per day, so around $400 per month, which, if you're a single person, that's, you're not going to turn your nose up at $400 per month, but that's nothing. I mean, I got several books selling significantly more than Ian Fleming's Casino Royale every single day, and that's, you might say, okay, that makes sense because your books are new and Casino Royale's been in print for 70 years. But the fact is, there are new people born every single day and new readers who turn of age every single day who've never read Casino Royale. So now, more than at any other point in the history of Ian Fleming's books, is the chance to reach new readers. And you can utilize social media and Amazon advertising and all sorts of different channels to reach new readers. There is no reason for Ian Fleming Publications not to be selling copies of their book. And the problem is, whichever approach they take, they've made this first misstep. If they start advertising the books, and we'll talk about that, they're going to run into the fact that people who want to read James Bond books, people who want to read Ian Fleming's original James Bond books, don't want to read an edited version of it. They don't want to read a version of it in which you've changed the language to make it more palatable for modern audiences, because you don't buy a 70-year-old book because you want it to be more palatable for modern audiences. You want the original book. You want it complete and unabridged. They knew about that in 1954, so I don't understand what Ian Fleming Publications fails to get. So that's a massive red flag, because I think that's going to be a real problem. That is going to be a hurdle that I think is insurmountable. I mean, the basic fact is I started a petition to convince Ian Fleming Publications not to change the language of the James Bond books. In a few days, we've already had 500 signatures. It's going to be up to 1,000 soon enough. And these are people who have said they will boycott buying new editions of the books if they've been edited. So Ian Fleming Publications needs to understand that if they go down this route of trying to publish these books with rewritten sections of it, nobody's going to buy them. Their core audience is not going to buy them. I don't know who was behind that decision, but you might have torpedoed Ian Fleming Publications before you've even launched your first book. So that's a real red flag. But let's look at the other red flags as well. I made a video recently about the American editions of the books. And the other thing about modern publishing as opposed to traditional publishing is modern publishing is global. When I publish a book, I launch it on the same day throughout the world. because I can do that. It's as easy as breakfast. You know, if I launch a book in America, the same day it's available in England, the same day it's available in Sweden, in Australia, in Canada, in India. Got a lot of Indian readers, actually. Thank you, guys. And yet, one of the other legacy hangovers from traditional publishing is this whole idea that the British market and the American market and other markets are completely separate. So, for example, when Kim Sherwood's book, Double or Nothing, got published, it was published in the UK, I think, in November. It's still not available in the American marketplace. When it came to Anthony Horowitz's book, With a Mind to Kill, I think they published it in the UK and America at the same time. But it really concerned me when Double or Nothing was published, and they had this big furore about publishing it in the UK, and we still haven't heard a peep in America about it. That's another red flag. I'm like, what are you doing? Why are you ignoring the American market completely? Because the American market is a massive market. You know, I make a full-time living from my books, selling them to 99% of the American market. I mean, down the line, when I've got more time, more bandwidth, I can actually reach into the UK market and also the German market, that's quite big, and potentially make another full-time income doing that. And so, yeah, understandably, you know, I'm aiming things at the American market first, but that's still, my books are still available worldwide. Now, for Ian Fleming Publications, what they did is they've led up to this very exciting launch of the new James Bond books in the UK with the new covers. We're hotly anticipating the new cover reveals when the books get released in April of this year. But in the American market, they have handed the rights over to HarperCollins, who are a traditional publisher, and HarperCollins have come up with a bunch of covers that, as I explained in that video I made before, took somebody about 10 minutes to make. It's like really, really ugly, generic Photoshop crap. And, you know, normally I don't like saying negative things about stuff like that, about books. If you look at the placeholder covers that Ian Fleming Publications has for the UK editions, with like 007 in that black print against a white background, I think those covers could be better. I understand they're placeholders though. But even if those were going to be the permanent covers, I wouldn't be here dissing those. I'd be like, okay, some thought has gone into those covers. You've got like the print font, which looks kind of like a period typewriter against the white background. It's kind of stylistic. There's some merit to that. And there's especially merit to it considering it's a placeholder. Whereas the American editions, it's literally like the least amount of effort that could have been put into it was put into it. I mean, it was like somebody was like, we need covers. Yeah, give Dave 5 minutes, he'll knock them out. And he literally knocked them out. It's every single cover is 3 lines of text with generic gradients on them. And then stock photography, as Josh Gay from 007 Oz pointed out. It's in Moonraker. It was the first picture of a rocket on page 1 of Adobe stock photography in a clipping mask on the covers. The covers are garbage. I mean, they are literally somebody spent as little time on them as possible. Now, I don't know why that is. I don't think that was done without reason. I have a suspicion that because the American James Bond books were published about a year after the British versions, maybe Ian Fleming Publications doesn't have the rights in America yet. So they're like, okay, HarperCollins, for a year, you just keep these warm for us, and we can have these generic crappy covers, and then we'll worry about that launch next year. If that's the case, I completely understand that. That's completely justifiable. But I would like to know if that's the case. I would love a statement from Ian Fleming Publications to explain what the hell is going on with the American editions. Because as an American consumer, I'm feeling completely left out in the cold. And that shouldn't be the case. I mean, to have absolutely nothing for the American audience on the 70th anniversary of the publication of Casino Royale boggles my mind. And the only way I can think that's justifiable is if there is some rights issue. So Ian Fleming Publications, let us know. Is that the reason? Or is there another reason? We want to know. Because to me, that's another red flag that possibly they don't necessarily know what they're doing. And along that route, yeah, do they know what they're doing? I don't know. I don't know what their strategy is towards marketing and selling these books. What I can say is Ian Fleming Publications has a wonderful catalogue of books at their disposal. They have the original James Bond books, they have Thrilling Cities, they have the Diamond Smugglers. These are great books. They also have a huge global audience of James Bond fans who love these books. A huge global audience of James Bond fans like myself who have multiple editions of every single James Bond book because we love the covers, we love the new editions. I know if they weren't abridged, or they weren't rewritten to suit modern sensibilities, I'd have been the first in line to order a whole new set of the James Bond books with their new covers. I would be so excited to support Ian Fleming Publications and buy every single one. I'd be like, yes, I'm going to buy the hardback covers of these books. I'm going to treasure them. This is a landmark year. This is Ian Fleming Publications raising the flag, saying we are going to do better than traditional publishing has ever done for Ian Fleming. And there are two problems that arise immediately. First of all, they've buggered around with the words of the books. They are going to sell rewritten books, and I'm not going to buy rewritten books. I want to buy Ian Fleming's original books. I don't want to buy books that you've messed around with the words on it. So, I'm not going to buy the books because of that. And secondly, I can't buy the books even if I wanted to. I am a huge James Bond fan. I'm in America, and it seems very clear that the only option I have for the 70th anniversary editions of these books are these really crappy ones that HarperCollins are producing. So, yeah, you think if every single hardcover book sells for like $20, and if Ian Fleming Publications, I don't know, if they make $10 per book, which is entirely possible. I mean, when I sell paperbacks or hardbacks in my books, if I set the price high enough, I can make $10 in profit. Normally I only make a few dollars because I'm more interested in selling books than making a huge amount of money. But the potential exists for Ian Fleming Publications to make, $10 per book, 14 books. So that means me on my own, I am going to be giving Ian Fleming Publications $140 in profit if they make the unrewritten books available to me as an American consumer. And yet they don't. And I am just one of literally thousands of customers who would do this. So Ian Fleming Publications is losing out on potentially tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue right from the get-go. And that's unconscionable. I mean, here you are saying you want to protect the legacy and uphold and protect the legacy of Ian Fleming Publications. And so far, you are doing a terrible job at it. And as David Zaritsky said in his video when he was talking about this, help us help you. I'm here not to give Ian Fleming Publications a hard time. I don't want Ian Fleming Publications to fail. I want them to succeed. I want them to succeed massively. And the frustrating thing for me is I know that they can succeed massively. When it comes to selling books, I've always said there are two things. As a self-published author, anybody can be a self-published author. You need to learn the craft of writing. Oh, Ian Fleming's mastered the craft of writing. And secondly, you need to follow the process of successful self-publishing. There is a process. When it comes to selling books online in 2023, there is a process. Whether it's print books, whether it's digital books, there is a very clearly established process that you can follow in order to do that profitably. It's like, I know how to do this. I actually am a consultant and help other authors do this. I say, hey, here's the system. Let's implement the system for you. And I get really tactical with it. I can, show them how to create ads, find audiences, create funnels to get people to buy the books. It's a system that already exists, a foolproof system. And I'm worried that Ian Fleming Publications doesn't know about this system. They don't have the skills to implement it. And that really concerns me because that means they're not going to sell books. And they need to sell books. They need to sell books because that is how you protect and uphold the legacy of Ian Fleming. I mean, just imagine if you are selling enough books, you can have enough money coming in to do incredible things. Imagine if you had, tens of thousands of dollars coming in every month that you wouldn't have done otherwise. You could create, I don't know, a traveling Ian Fleming museum. You could get lots of Ian Fleming's personal effects and you could go to different museums all around the world and have like an installation for a few months there and give people the opportunity to see that. What an amazing way to protect and uphold the legacy of Ian Fleming. And that could be paid for with the sales of these books. And I am really concerned that Ian Fleming Publications don't have the knowledge or experience to be able to do this, and that's a huge wasted opportunity. So my message really to Ian Fleming Publications is exactly as David Zaritsky said: help us help you. We want to buy Ian Fleming's books. We want you to be successful. We want you to be able to do incredible, unexpected things to protect and uphold Ian Fleming's legacy and share it with a larger and larger audience. And these books are your opportunity to do that. So don't screw it up. Don't screw it up. And we're not here to give you a hard time. We are not here to celebrate your failures. We want you to succeed. And you have thousands of James Bond fans who want you to succeed. So let us help you. I mean, I don't know, sometimes I feel like I should write Ian Fleming Publications an email and be like, hey, I know a thing or two about selling books in the modern industry. I've sold it, tens of thousands of them, made a lot of money with it. If you want any advice, I will happily give it to you for free. And the best piece of advice I can give right now is don't mess with Ian Fleming's words. Because that's the first red flag, that's the first hurdle you've come across, it's the first obstacle you've created for yourselves, and it is not a great start. But you have the opportunity to still be massively successful. This could be the biggest thing that has happened to Ian Fleming's legacy in decades, and it could be one of the biggest things that happens to publishing in years. Ian Fleming, his James Bond books, those are iconic, those are so important, and you now have everything you need to be massively successful and show that traditional publishers don't know how to be successful in this day and age. They don't know how to honor their writers in a way that's meaningful. You can do that. You have a huge responsibility to get this right. You are, to quote Loki, burdened with glorious purpose. So help us help you be successful by getting these things right. And if there is anything we can do to assist you with that, let us know. We, as James Bond fans, are here to help you succeed. So please give us the opportunity to do that. Anyway, thanks very much. If you haven't already, I've got a link down there to my petition that's online to appeal to the estate of Ian Fleming and Ian Fleming Publications not to issue rewritten or changed copies of the James Bond books. Please sign it if you haven't already. We've got 500 people already signed it. We're going to be up to 1,000 very soon. Then who knows where else we might go with that list. But it's very important that Ian Fleming Publications get this right, and let them know how we feel about it. Thanks very much. I'm Roland Hume. I've sold 67,000 copies of my books. If you want to find out how I did it, I've got the link right here you can click. And otherwise, don't forget to subscribe. I've got more videos coming soon. Thank you.